Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, Pix 11 Sports presents New York Mets baseball. Tonight, the Mets play the Philadelphia Phillies. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Hyundai, who invites you to get in your comfort zone with the most advanced Elantra yet. Visit your Hyundai dealer today. By Verizon, America's largest and most reliable 4G LTE network. By the Sands, play your way at Sands Bethlehem. By McDonald's, stop by for the new 100% sirloin third-pound burgers starting at $4.99. Price and participation may vary. By City Mobile, bank from almost anywhere. And by the Honda Dream Garage sales event now at your Honda dealer. Well, there's the game, and then there's the games before the game. Got it. The tailgating is going on hot and heavy, not just Philly fans, but Mets fans out in abundance in the city of brotherly love. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Philadelphia. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you tonight as Mets play the middle game of their three-game series against the Phillies. The Phillies won last night, and the Mets scored only one run, something the Mets have done all too frequently of late, just 9 runs in their last 5 games. They've been carried by their pitching. They're still in first place in the National League East, but the offense has become a source of some concern.
Well, you knew the pitching was going to be their strength, but you thought after spring training that you were going to be led down a better offensive road. Now, if we look at the numbers after David Wright, who's a constant, and Travis d'Arnaud, who's getting off to an unbelievable start, after they haven't been in the lineup, you see the offense is really dried up. But my experience is that you always can find a lot of different reasons why you're not scoring run. Duda and Lagares were hitting really well. They're not now. You're playing a couple of rookies in Herrera and Plawecki. But the real caveat that scares me, 29 games they played, 15 of those, more than half, they scored 3 runs or less.
Last night they were shut down by Cole Hamels. Tonight the Mets will go up against a former Met, Aaron Harang, who, like his counterpart John Neese, back of the rotation kind of guy, both in the top 10 in the National League in earned run average. Mets and Phillies from Citizens Bank Park on a beautiful night. All the action coming your way on Pix 11.
every night. Aaron Harang, 6-1 in his career at Citizens Bank Park, continuing that good play now. Freddie Galvis, 391 average, but he's 10 for his last 18, or 10 for 18, right-handed so far this year in the Mets. We talked about the offense in the open.
We know which way the pH goes. It's baseball, not acid ball.
There we go.
Time to vote for your Mets All-Stars. You can vote 35 times on the 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot at Mets.com. Voting is exclusively online and available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. Vote at Mets.com now. Starting lineup brought to you by Land Rover Above and Beyond. Night off for Wilmer Flores, has been struggling with the bat, so Ruben Tejada gets the call at shortstop. Mets will try and find some offense tonight against a former Met who has gotten off to another great start for another National League East team, Aaron Harang.
And a happy birthday to Aaron Harang, 37 years young or so. That's the way he has been pitching. See that good record and good ERA. 125 wins in his big league career. And the defense behind him is brought to you by GMC. We are professional grade, and so is the Phillies defense. Ben Revere, Odubel Herrera, who's been great rookie in center field. Frenchie, Jeff Francoeur in right field. Andres Blanco, Freddie Galvis, Cesar Hernandez, and Darren Ruff. No Utley, no Howard, and Carlos Ruiz. Hopefully it'll be a little easier for him to put down the digits today working with Harang.
Curtis Granderson will lead things off. Granderson 0 for 4 last night and just 1 for 14 in his career against the now 37-year-old Aaron Harang. And his first pitch of the night is a fastball in for a strike, and we're underway. Harang pitching with his 8th different major league team. Last year released by Cleveland in spring training, signed by the Braves right before the season, and he was spectacular for Atlanta, particularly early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, it was only 12-12, but his record should have been much better. And the year prior, he made more visits to more clubs, so well traveled.
You see his tenure with each team. Just briefly met late in the 2013 season. And he has, his velocity keeps going down, and the success rate seemingly stays the same. Toward the middle of the diamond, and Granderson has himself a leadoff hit. So with the second baseman Hernandez pulled all the way over in the hole, Granderson able to shoot one through the right side.
I don't know why I snicker every time I watch a ball hit against a shift that becomes a base hit. That should have been an easy 4-3, but that's, I guess, how it goes now. Ground ball, playing him to shift and deep was the second baseman, and Granderson with a nice base hit.
It's less understandable with a guy like Granderson than with a guy like Duda, because Curtis is not that guy anymore, at least seemingly not that dead pull hitter. Here's Lagares, who's 0 for his last 13, 0 for 4 last night, and bunting for a hit with the third baseman Blanco playing back. We've seen Lagares do that successfully already this year.
Well, you talked about Harang's fastball velocity going down, but the scouts and people we've talked to have said that his fastball, throwing his fastball, has gone up. He's throwing his fastball more, almost like Bartolo Colon.
Into shallow right, Francoeur over toward the line. And Frenchie makes the grab for the first out of the night.
Frenchie batting cleanup for his ball club in this evening's game.
Now Lucas Duda. Lucas didn't start last night against Cole Hamels, came off the bench late and struck out as a pinch hitter in the 9th inning, and they will put the full shift on against him with Blanco moving over to the right side of the diamond. That leaves Galvis alone on the left side.
The way they're going, Lucas is 0 for his last 12 against Aaron Harang. Why not take the hit?
Popped up. Galvis waiting for it to come down. And that's the second out. So Duda sees one pitch, pops to short, and now they're 2 away. Well, the newest Met, Noah Syndergaard, trying to catch up on his rest.
Well, he said after he was completely just blanked out a little bit after Wally told him he was going up, he called his mom. How about that Mother's Day present?
Called his mom, called his dad, and said he was stunned.
Wow.
And congratulations to Noah, who will make his major league debut Tuesday night at Wrigley Field. Pack the long underwear. Slider low to Kadire for ball one. Michael 1 for 4 last night, hitting at .238. Like just about everybody else in this lineup right now, he is struggling. Just 3 for his last 18. With Dylan G going on the disabled list with the groin injury, the Mets had the option of bringing up another player for a couple of days, extra position player, maybe an extra bullpen arm, and then activating Syndergaard on Tuesday. But they chose to bring Syndergaard up today so he could throw his bullpen session in front of Dan Worthen and be around the club for a few days.
Well, I think Dan Worthen during spring training, Noah struggled a little bit, so I think he wants to see him throwing at his best, which he has been his last few starts in Las Vegas. And I think it's a good thing. You know, this is not just a normal any-day guy coming up to the big leagues. This is a guy that is supposed to be one of your studs moving forward. I mean, at some point, you and I were talking before the broadcast, you know, as early maybe as this year or next year at least, you're going to have Harvey, DeGrom, Wheeler, Syndergaard, and Matz. That could be your rotation.
Could be awesome.
Whoa, that makes it fun for me every night.
Granderson at first and 2 out. 2-2 to Kadire. Daniel Murphy would be next. And the curveball dumped into shallow center field for a base hit. Good job by Kadire on the breaking ball, and the Mets have 2 men on.
Well, good breaking ball. Sometimes as a pitcher, you make your pitch. It's on the corner, on the black, or on the outside corner of the plate at least. But the hitter beat you with your pitch. Out in front, but strong enough to muscle that into center field.
So now 2 aboard, and here's Murphy. Murph 1 for 3 last night. He's the only guy in the lineup who has good numbers against Harang. 8 for 23. That's a .348 average with a home run against Harang. And the fastball away for ball one. Just want to get back to Syndergaard for a moment. So basically, if you're bringing up a pitcher for a spot start and he's not a huge prospect, you just ship him in the day of the game. But you treat a guy who's, I guess, for lack of a better word, highly hyped. You bring him in early because you're trying to get him better adjusted.
Yeah, I honestly think sometimes, Gary, it's better to just bring a guy in the day before so he doesn't have to think about it too much. I would personally do that. And plus, I addressed it, you and I addressed it in the open. There's no offense. So these 3 days, you could have used another guy on the bench or another player.
Maybe Noah's that guy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He
just had a 3-hit game for Vegas in his last start Thursday, including a home run over the center field fence. Murphy lays off, and it's in for a strike. 1-2. Granderson at second. Kadire at first with 2 down. Kevin Plawecki, who's had the hottest bat on the lineup the last week, waiting on deck. Murphy hits it out to center. Herrera had him played perfectly, and that retires the side. Mets get 2 hits and strand a pair. John Neese takes them out when we come back.
We'll see at the end of the game. That's very nice.
Phillies starting lineup brought to you by Land Rover Above and Beyond. Very different looking lineup for Ryan Sandberg against the lefty tonight. Phillies have had a higher percentage of at-bats from left-hand hitters than any team in the National League this year, but they have just the 2 lefties in the lineup tonight against John Neese.
Well, John Neese, 54 wins in his career, 9-11 last year at Citizens Bank Park, which I think is significant. He's 4-4, not a great record, but a 3.71 ERA, which I find is a good ERA in this ballpark.
He has beaten the Phillies the last 6 times he started against them in any venue, and tries to keep that string going tonight. Ben Revere will lead things off. Revere 1 for 4 last night, drove in a run in the Phillies' 3-1 win, and Neese misses outside for ball 1. Revere, Freddie Galvis, and Darren Ruff for the Phillies in the first. Phillies last night won their 11th game this season. They're 11-19. And Neese gets that cutter in for a strike, 1-1.
No Utley or Howard. They are 7 for 58 with a single home run by Howard against Jonathan Neese.
More surprising is that the other left-hand bat, Cody Ashe, sits down because Ashe has hit Neese well, but he's been cold overall lately, and so Sandberg gives him the night off in addition to Utley and Howard. Right at Ruben Tejada, getting the spot started short tonight, and he throws out Revere for the first down.
Look at the defense behind Jonathan, brought to you by GMC. We're a professional grade. The outfield's the same every night. Kadire, Lagares, and Granderson. Tejada really the change as he gets started short. Jonathan Neese gives up a lot of ground balls. And Milwaukee, who's behind the play, will play tonight. He'll have a day off tomorrow.
John Neese getting 64% ground balls this year, the highest percentage in the National League and the highest by far of his career. Here's Freddie Galvis, who's been red hot. Last night got on base 4 straight times with 3 hits and a walk, and also stole his first 2 bases of the year. Galvis doing a more than adequate job taking the place of Jimmy Rollins. Another chance for Tejada. 2 ground balls, 2 outs for Neese to start his night.
Isn't it? I mean, that's baseball, isn't it? You change the lineup a little because of all the ground balls he gives up. Put in Tejada instead of Wilmer Flores, and first 2 ground balls right at him.
Sometimes it goes just the way you draw it up.
That's right.
Well, there are lineups for pitchers, as you know, goes back forever in this game. Darren Ruff, and he takes a strike. It was never truer than when you guys played in the 80s and Sid Fernandez would pitch and Davey Johnson could run Kevin Mitchell or Howard Johnson in a shortstop.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Because Sid would literally, folks, if he gave up 1 or 2 ground balls a game, that was huge. Sid for 6 innings, he would always have the same line: 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run maybe, 3 walks, 10 punch outs.
And the rest all fly balls.
That's right.
Because everything he threw went up. 1-2 to Darren Ruff. 0 for 4 last night. Ruff starting at first base tonight for Howard. He started in left field last night. And he bounces the curveball, 2-2. John tonight making his 154th start as a Met. He's starting to move up on some of those all-time Met lists. Gets it inside on Ruff, and the fly ball out to Kadire in left field for the 3rd out. So he starts out his night with a 1-2-3 inning. After 1, Mets and Phillies, no score. Richie Ashburn. More hits than any major leaguer in the 1950s. An original Met in 1962. In fact, the Mets' most valuable player in 1962. And then a beloved broadcaster here in Philadelphia before his passing. Kevin Plawecki leads off for the Mets in the second against Aaron Harang. Plawecki's hit in 7 straight games, and he takes a slider down for ball 1. So guess what just happened in Washington?
I know what probably happened. You tell me, though.
Well, Bryce Harper just hit a walk-off home run. 6 home runs in his last 3 games, and the Nats beat the Braves 8-6 after blowing a 5-run lead.
It's Saturday, so player of the week a little bit locked up here.
Wow. It's a week for the ages.
Has he got 11 now? 12 home runs?
11 home runs.
Yeah.
6 in the last 3 games. And at least 12 RBI.
He said, we're going to get hot, people. Just watch us. He's doing it himself.
Well, when they told him last night that he became the first hitter in the history of the Expos Nationals franchise, he had 5 home runs in 2 games, he said, maybe he'll just hit 2 more tomorrow. Well, he only hit 1, but it counted for 2 runs and it won the game.
Doesn't lack for confidence, you know that. Good for him.
Plawecki drives one left field. Back goes Revere onto the warning track and reels it in.
This is always an interesting ballpark because when you do games in April and May, anything hit in the air to left field, you just know it's going to go out. And just because it's a little bit cooler today than it was yesterday, that ball did not carry.
So Plawecki retired, 1 out in the second. Now Dilson Herrera. And Herrera drives one to center. Herrera coming on, and he makes the catch. Dilson Herrera hit it hard. Odubel Herrera, no relation, makes the running grab.
Well, he's done a nice job in center field. They've got him playing really deep. And his strength has been coming in on the baseball, which makes sense for a former infielder. So they're trying to take away those balls that go over his head.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Ruben Tejada. Ruben making his 8th start this season. There's been so much discussion about Wilmer Flores and his defense. What has been neglected in the conversation is that Wilmer is really struggling with the bat right now. 2 for his last 21. And so getting a night off tonight.
Well, they always say, one of the adages they say in baseball is that if you are not hitting, you sometimes bring your non-hitting out to defense. I think it's the opposite with Wilmer. I think what has happened is that his defense and worrying so much about making the plays has now affected his offense.
Terry Collins was asked about Flores today, and the expression he used was, he said, Wilmer has a lot on his plate right now.
That's not a good thing, because when you're playing this game, I mean, the clock ticks the same as it does for anyone else. The great players are the ones that can slow that tick down a little bit, and it's going pretty fast for Wilmer right now.
Two-two to Tejada, and he bounces one foul.
Harang, when he pitched for Cincinnati, when he had his best years, he routinely struck out over 200. Had 16 wins, I believe, one year. He was a 4-seamer, high fastball with a good curveball slider. Now he's throwing a lot of 2-seam fastballs. That's one right there.
Well, that one up to 92, the hardest pitch he's thrown so far. But, you know, you use the analogy of Bartolo Colon, and you watch Harang, and that's who you're seeing. You're seeing a guy who's throwing fastballs, but he's cutting it, he's sinking it, he's going occasionally with the 4-seamer upstairs.
Well, these older pitchers, they know that they can't go out there and throw 120 pitches. They've got to be 10 to 12 pitches per inning and get on the bench.
Eighth pitch of the at bat coming to Tejada, and he hits it toward the middle, base hit. Mets have their 3rd hit against Harang, a 2-out single for Tejada to clear the pitcher's spot.
Boy, you wish that you could just, if you were Ruben Tejada, have him watch that swing right before he goes to the plate every single time. That's where his bread and butter is. Ground balls, line drives, hit hard up the middle.
John Neese 2 for 9 at the plate this year, and has always had the knack, better than I think any pitcher we've seen over the last number of years, to work a walk.
He knows the strike zone.
John's driven in a couple of runs this year. And sure enough, Harang falls behind him 2-0.
There's his career pitching totals. That's a lot of games started.
Started out in Oakland, had the largest stretch in Cincinnati, where he was a mainstay for half a dozen years. Had his best season with the Reds in 2007 when he was 16-6. He's never had a really low ERA. He's always been a 3.5 guy, 3.5 to 4.
I give him a push, though, a little bit. Pitched in that ballpark in Cincinnati for a long time. I mean, it's hard to keep the ball in the ballpark.
And a fly ball pitcher pitching in that kind of ballpark. But he was able to make it work. 2-2 to Neese with Granderson waiting. And John fouls off that fastball. Harang dialing it up in this inning. He's hit 92 a couple of times.
Thanks for those graphics, guys. I said he won 16. He did it 2 times. Back-to-back years. Very nice.
Well, the 8 and 9 hitters making Harang work this inning, building up that pitch count just a tad. And Neese takes a call, third strike. First strikeout of the night for Harang, and that'll do it for the Mets in the second. Cheesesteaks on the grill. Provolone or whiz?
Going through it, you know, every single one of us has had an extra day here and there, so you know, dealing with it is something you have to do, and you know, I don't think I did a very good job of that, but I think we're all excited to go back to a 5-day rotation, and it is what it is.
Well, we talked about it a lot during Matt's start last night, the fact that he was pitching with 2 extra days rest, and it showed.
Well, I definitely was one of those people that struggled when there was extra days rest, and in fact, I probably was one of those guys that if pitchers pitched on 3 days rest, in my time it would have been better for me than pitching with all that idle time. That being said, there's no excuses. You know, when you take the mound, you got to figure it out somehow, some way.
Former Met Jeff Francoeur leading off against John Neese in the home second. Neese drops down, and Francoeur flies one out to right center for Granderson. one away. Now it should be noted that not only did Harvey pitch with 2 extra days rest last night, but John Neese is pitching with 2 extra days rest tonight.
And as I thought last night that it would hurt Harvey's fastball command, I think it's good for Jonathan Neese because he's a guy that the Mets have always had a hard time getting him through seasons, and I think the extra arm speed will work better for him. So each pitcher is different.
Now the Mets will get back to a regular rest situation starting with tomorrow's game. Wasn't supposed to be that way, but Bartolo Colon got moved up when G went on the disabled list. Hard bunt off the bat of Cesar Hernandez, and Murphy able to throw him out for the second out.
Well, that was a great read by Murph. He was playing in, but Hernandez really tipped his hand too early, and Murph came in and made that play look much easier than it probably should have been. Hernandez must have a tell like some people do in poker, and Murphy read it.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Carlos Ruiz moved up to the 6th spot in the batting order in this makeshift Phillies lineup. How have things changed for the Phillies in a short period of time? Our stat guy Ed Svita points out that Ruiz is the only player in the lineup tonight for the Phillies who has played in a postseason game as a Philly.
That's just crazy,
right? And that's with, you know, with all the guys that they still have around, Utley and Howard, Hamels, etc. Slammed the other way down the line and foul.
I'll always picture Ruiz. When I think about baseball, I don't care if I'm 80 years old, of that no-hitter that Halladay threw against the Cincinnati Reds. Brandon Phillips' bat ended up in front of the plate. He had to step over it, grab the ball, throw it to first base to complete the no-hitter. It's been the pitchers that have pitched here have been very lucky to throw to Carlos Ruiz. Like that. You see Plawecki called for the fastball up. Neese hit the target. That's perfect because now it can set up anything. Fastball in, curveball that he threw for a strike. They're going with fastball in.
Strike 3 called. Caught the inside corner. First strikeout of the night for Neese. He's gone perfectly through the first 2. No score.
There's always plenty to do for us if you choose to in Philly.
Mets upcoming schedule brought to you by your local Tri-Honda dealer. Mets have one more game here in Philly tomorrow afternoon, and then 4 in Chicago before they head home to play the Brewers over the weekend, and then the Cardinals, who have the best record in baseball at 22-7. They'll make their only trip to Citi Field on the next homestand. Curtis Granderson led off the game with a base hit. Takes ball 1 from Harang. Two and 0 to Curtis, and we check in with Steve Gelb. Steve?
You know, the one part of Curtis Granderson's game that's yet to come is the power. Just 2 home runs this season. Same goes for Lucas Duda. Kevin Long isn't too worried about it, though. In fact, he thinks the home runs are coming for both guys. You see, early this season, the pitchers were really pounding both guys away because neither one had proven throughout their career that they could hit the ball on the outside and take it the opposite way. Now, both guys really have, as Granderson flies this one into shallow center, 1 away. But both guys really have done a good job this year of proving that they can hit that outside pitch. And now the pitchers are starting to come back inside on the 2 guys. And Kevin Long said that he's starting to work before the games on those inside pitches again with Granderson and Duda. He thinks that's where the home run power is going to come, and it's right around the corner.
Well, we saw Curtis turn on an inside pitch at Citi Field and hit the home run against the Orioles the other day. There's Juan Lagares.
My only thought about what Steve was talking about, and yes, most of the time when you're going to hit home runs, it's to the pull side, and you're looking for that ball middle of the plate in. But in Duda and Granderson's way, in making themselves different hitters, have they stripped some of their power away by using the middle of the field and the opposite way? I don't know that answer. It just seems like an interesting question.
Lagares pops one up for Galvis, and that's the second out.
And Granderson had a pitch inside against Harang, who's throwing, around 88 to 92. He got beat inside, and so did Juan Lagares. They're just, when teams get in a funk offensively, I tried to say in the open, there's a million different reasons, but there's no excuses for the hitting coach or the players. At some point, you got to figure a way to put some points on the board. Like I said, we're talking about after Wright went down and after Darno went down, but 29 games they've played. This is their 30th game. 15 times they've scored 3 runs or less. It's unacceptable if you're going to be a championship team.
Well, you can win with a minimum of offense if you have great pitching and defense. The Mets might have great pitching, but outside of Lagares, they don't have great defense, and it's very hard to win when you're scoring 3 runs a game when your defense is questionable.
I guess what I'm saying is that it's unacceptable with the back of the baseball cards that a lot of guys on this team have. There should be a little more pop, some more run scoring than there has been.
1-2 to Duda, and Lucas hits it into the shift. That's Blanco, the third baseman, playing on the right side, and that's a 5-3 putout, oddly enough, in your scorecard. No score in the third. BB.com's lowest cost to own brand over 5 years. A little warm for the Fanatic hat, no?
You got to wear it to be out to the game, though. If you have one, you got to go with it. It was a little cooler this morning when I went out to walk. I went out with just like a T-shirt on. I was like, whoa. But it got better as the day went along.
And it's supposed to be hot tomorrow here in Philadelphia. Then the Mets will find much cooler temperatures when they get to the Windy City. Odubel Herrera leading off in the third. 0 for 3 last night. And this left-hand hitter has handled lefties pretty well. He's hitting .360 against lefties in his rookie season.
Well, he's got that high leg kick, but he gets it down pretty quickly. And he's got a nice, quick stroke. He's got some real talent, this kid.
Just 23 years old, Rule 5 pick from Texas.
I mean, how many hitters have you seen when they take their stance, they turn their ankle in? He's almost sitting on his ankle bone.
Looks very uncomfortable. Slap to short. Tough play for Tejada against Herrera's speed. Got him by a stride. Nice play by Rubin for the first down.
Well, this is not an easy play. Not only do you have to charge it and come up with it, but really your momentum is working away from first base. So can you get enough on the throw? You see Herrera eyeballing Tejada down the line. That might have stopped him from going all out, but just nips him at first base.
See, Herrera's got the hat under the helmet, the Juan Pierre look.
That's right. Is that the hat, or is that the what's the kind of cap that some of the players wear? It's tight fitting. What's the ball cap?
Like the do-rag?
Yeah.
I thought there was a bill on it.
Oh, maybe. Hopefully it was. I like that look.
Andres Blanco, the switch hitting third baseman, grounds one to Murphy, knocks it down but can't make a play, and Blanco will be the first base runner of the night for the Phils. It'll be a base hit for Blanco.
Well, this is a play that should be made. Murph down the line, a little top spin, and it just hits him in the heel of the glove.
So the Phillies have their first base runner. Harang will go up there to try to bunt, which he does very well. 4 sacrifices this year ties him for the league lead. And he takes ball 1. So John Neese, where he has excelled most this year, has been dealing with traffic. Right, his last start he gave up 9 hits and a walk and stranded 9 base runners, gave up just 1 run in 7 innings. Tonight he's already had 2 1-2-3 innings. In his first 5 starts combined, he only had 6 1-2-3 innings.
Well, I think that bodes well for Jonathan, though. I mean, every pitcher wants to have 1-2-3 innings. It's not going to happen all the time. But what it shows me, boy, Harang looked like he wanted to swing the bat because Duda and Murphy are charging. What it shows me is the problem I always have with Jonathan, last year was 9/11, is that when he gets in trouble, sometimes he can't get out of it. And this year he has 4 of his 5 starts. He's only given up a run.
Harang bunts at it and misses 2-2.
Should say only an earned run in 4 out of 5 starts.
Well, the fact is he's given up 37 hits and 10 walks in 30 innings coming into the night. It's a lot of base runners, and yet he has a 2.4 ERA. So you can see maybe he's been a little fortunate, but also maybe he's been a little tougher.
Tougher. I like that. I'll think of it as being a little tougher.
And that's quite a level of consistency right there. He just has not gotten blown out very often.
I like that throw over. Occasionally you have to do that so you keep that runner at first from anticipating Duda coming off the bag earlier and getting a big lead off first.
Blanco not a fast runner at first. Murphy set to charge, and Neese checks in on Blanco, who is standing right on the bag. Harang 1 for 10 when he swings the bat this season, but he's bunting, and he takes that little half chop at it. Does that count as a swing or a bunt? And apparently it counts as a bunt, and home plate umpire Ted Barrett says strike 3.
I'll tell you one thing, it was ugly.
But you can make a case that that's a swing and should be a regulation foul ball.
Well, what happened is he was fooled by the curveball, so he didn't know what to do. And Ryan Sandberg could have ran out there and argued it.
I'm very surprised that Rhino is not arguing, because that you know, technically that is a swing. That's not a bunt.
I think it's Rhino Hall of Famer. It's just beneath him to argue that that's a swing.
Now that makes some sense. Here's Ben Revere with 2 out and a runner at first, and he takes a strike. Revere bounced out to short his first time up. Today's high-speed pitch comes from Time Warner Cable. Enjoy better. Orang has outflanked Neese so far tonight.
Well, you raise an interesting point, Gary. If you ever got to the point where you were a good guy, could handle the bat as a pitcher, every time you had 2 strikes in a bunting situation, you would take a little pepper swing, a half a swing, so if it's fouled off, you're not eliminated. And just try to pepper the ball where the guys are moving. Shortstop's covering second baseman's going to cover first. That'd be an interesting thing, but you'd have to be a guy who can handle the bat.
I would have to go to the rule book to see exactly what the definition is of a bunt. Here's ball 4 as Revere draws a walk, and there'll be 2 men on for Freddie Galvis. I mean, where's the line of demarcation between what's a bunt and what's a swing? Especially in that situation where a foul third strike bunt is an out and a foul third strike swing is not.
One thing to watch here, guys, is Freddie Galvis from the left side has kind of a normal way of approaching the pitcher, right-handed pitcher. But from the right side, just watch his front left foot. He does something he doesn't do from the left side, and he almost has his left foot out of the batter's box before the pitch comes. Very unusual. Look at that left foot. Half in and half out.
That's a spot where you never see anybody place their foot. Even guys who have wide open stances.
No divots there. It's always nice and clean.
Well, whatever it is, it's been successful for Galvis. He's hitting over 500 from the right side. 10 for 19 after grounding out his first time up tonight.
I mean, it's just such a long way to have to close up to get square, but he's doing it.
Blanco at second, Revere at first with 2 out. Scoreless game in the 3rd. And Galvis pops it up. Dilson Herrera called off by Granderson. Side retired. East works around his first traffic of the night. Phillies lead 2. No score after 3. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Obviously, French fries are not healthy. But is there anybody on earth who does not like French fries?
No.
I mean, people who don't like chocolate. They don't like, red meat. A lot of things that are unhealthy. But does anybody not like French fries?
It's not only does everyone love French fries, but I will say right now, as we've gotten older, we're talking about our 10th year here together. As we've gotten older, we've all tried to eat better when we get on the road. Not only do we all love French fries, I really honestly almost hate people that are eating French fries in front of me.
Well, the problem is, as Michael Kadar leads off the fourth, if somebody's eating French fries at the same table as you, you're going to eat some.
You got to have, but it's hard to have one, right?
It's true. Kadar had a base hit to center field his first time up. And he hits this one in the air to right center. Herrera covering ground, calls off Francoeur, and that's the first out.
You know, it's interesting when you watch. Sorry, Gary. It's interesting when you watch Aaron Harang. We're talking about a big man. I don't know if you can see it at home. Very simple mechanics. Does not push off at all. I mean, not an ounce, but raises that arm straight up. It's you would think a guy that is that big would use that weight and that momentum to get the ball to the plate. He's just the opposite. He's kind of like a dart thrower.
Daniel Murphy flying to center his first time up.
I mean, he's 6'7" to, I don't even want to guess, 260, 270?
They list him at 260.
Okay. But he's huge.
Pulled toward the hole, and Murphy's got a base hit. And that's fourth hit against Harang, a one-out single.
Well, we saw that same swing last night from Murphy on Jonathan Papelbon in the ninth inning. That one that he's off on his front foot. The breaking ball kind of fools him, but he's got enough to get the ball in the hole. Keeps those hands back enough. One hands it.
Is that just Papelbon has more velocity, so there's less margin for error for a hitter there?
Well, I think what happens is it's very similar pitches. He hit a split finger off Papelbon and a slider there from Harang. So Murphy's sitting on the fastball just out in front.
Kevin Plawecki flying to the warning track in left field his first time up. Murphy has yet to attempt a stolen base this year. And he's going. It's a hit and run play, and Plawecki fouls it off.
Why not? Do something.
Murphy's looking back all the way.
What is the phrase of you're crazy if you continue to do the same things over and over? Change something up, and Terry Collins tried to there.
Terry's probably played hit and run more this season than he did all of last season. And he's not a guy who loves the hit and run.
Think about it this way. When they were going through it where everything seemed to go right, he called the hit and run, and it worked, right, with Granderson and Lagares at the plate.
Murph usually is a lot more frisky on the bases, and you have to wonder whether that preseason hamstring injury has played a role in his station-to-station play.
Well, remember Juan Lagares last year when he started running in the last month of the year. He was asked why didn't he do it more during the regular season. He said, remember, I hurt my hamstring early in the season, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't overdo it.
Dilson Herrera on deck. 2-2 to Plawecki. And that's on the outside corner. Harang picks up his second strikeout of the night. 2 out.
See, it's interesting. Plawecki thinks that ball is down, but from being a catcher in the previous inning and seeing Jonathan Neese throw a pitch that was down and called for strike 3, he's got to know that that's going to be the strike zone.
Ted Barrett, the home plate umpire. So Plawecki, who strikes out very rarely, is caught looking for the second out. And now Dilson Herrera, who lined out to center his first trip. Well, Harang's throwing hard tonight. His average fastball velocity this season, 88.7. And he's been 91-92 with his four-seamer today. Big hop for Galvis, and that retires the side. And so the zeros continue on both sides. No score going to the bottom of the fourth. And the first 15,000 fans will receive a Mets fedora, courtesy of Select Spider ETF. For tickets, visit Mets.com/fedora. Our guys can find the hats.
By the way, I've always wished I could wear a fedora or hats. Guys that I see that wear them, I think I'm just not cool enough to pull it off. I just look effective when I wear it. It's awful.
I'm not a hat guy.
You're not a hat guy?
Most bald guys, they wear a lot of hats.
You're not.
Our friend Dave Sims out in Seattle has become very famous for wearing a different hat.
Well, he makes his own hats.
Right. But I just can't do the hat.
I'm not a hat guy, but for a different reason.
Darren Ruff pops one up, and in comes Lagares to call. One out.
I was forced to wear a hat for a long time.
Cap.
The cap, but still, it's still.
It's Jeff Francoeur with one out. Frenchie flied to center his first time up. Francoeur was with the Mets in 2009 and 2010. Mets traded him to Texas for Joaquin Arias,
a guy who hadn't played in 2 weeks,
and a guy who wound up with World Series rings in San Francisco.
He's a guy that hadn't played in 2 weeks. He was an infielder. He was traded for, and his first game for the Mets, he played left field.
Right. It's true. And missed somewhere. 2-1. Well, he burst on the scene with the Braves, drove in 100 runs, hit 29 home runs his first full season, and looked like he was headed for superstardom, but it just never worked out that way because he could never refine himself enough at the plate.
You know, when I think of Frenchie, I think of a lot of the athletes that have been just tremendous that didn't find their way through baseball. Remember Drew Henson, the quarterback, Michigan, drafted by the Yankees, could do everything. Well, Frenchie was that kind of athlete also.
He goes down on a pitch in the dirt. Not everybody can be Dave Winfield.
There you go. And it's just the bottom line for all of these great athletes, and Frenchie's one of those. He can do it all. The spinning of the baseball gets him. They can't ever hit that breaking ball.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Cesar Hernandez, who tried to bunt his way on and was thrown out by Murphy his first time up. Hernandez getting the start at second base with Chase Utley taking the night off, and he gives Murphy another chance on another first pitch, and it's a very easy inning for John Neese. He threw just 8 pitches. Cotton candy, anybody? Don't tell Keith. long before anybody had seen 50 Cent. There was this guy, first year of Citi Field, 2009.
Well, that's Gary Dell'Abate, and most New Yorkers know him as Baba Booey, of course, on the Howard Stern show. But the thing about it, he hits the umpire, but his reaction, he's just so ashamed. And if you knew Gary is the biggest Mets fan. He loves his Mets, follows them like none other. And I know he put a lot of thought and hope that he would throw a strike on that day, and it didn't happen.
You think he'll ever get invited back to try again?
Once a year I'd invite him back until he threw a strike.
Ruben Tejada has one of the Mets' 4 hits against Aaron Harang tonight. That came in the second inning. And he pulls that one over the bag. That's a fair ball. It'll go all the way down into the corner. And Tejada pulls in at second base with his 3rd double of the year. And the Mets have the first extra base hit of this game.
Oh, very nice. First pitch hitting like most of the hitters on both squads this evening. Finds the corner. Easy double for Tejada. And Jonathan Neese has to get this bunt down, considering the dearth of offense for the Mets.
Now, this is where Matt Harvey failed last night. Mets got a leadoff double in the 3rd inning last night from Dilson Herrera. Harvey couldn't get a bunt down, and that really cost him in the end. See if Neese can do better. John looking for his first sacrifice of the season.
Just make Blanco field it, the third baseman. That way Tejada makes it easy for him.
Ruben Tejada getting a spot start tonight and coming through with a single and a double in his first 2 at-bats. Boy, a huge hole open for Neese on that left side if they wanted to let him swing. And bunts it foul, 1-1.
You know, we saw Harvey last night, Gary. He did one thing. He moved to the top of the box, trying to get that bat into fair territory. It makes it a little easier to get the ball fair and not foul like Jonathan just put it.
Harang handles, takes a look at third, but he'll take the sure out. 1-4 on the sacrifice, and now Tejada's at third with 1 out.
Well, you have an advantage there because Harang is such a big man, but he doesn't move that well. That's a play that if it's back to a guy who really feels his position, that's an out at third base. But see the bat position? It's even with the plate, then moves a little forward. You don't want the bat really to move too much. You want it to be really stationary. And they always teach you don't hit the ball or bunt the ball. You catch the ball on the bat.
Well, this is an area where the Mets have thrived this year, getting a runner to third with less than 2 out. They've gotten him home 67% of the time, best in the National League. Phillies bring the infield in for Granderson, and he takes a strike on the inside. Granderson a single and a fly ball to center, 1 for 2. Now the Mets haven't had the most opportunities with a runner at third with less than 2 out, but they've done a good job cashing him in. With the numbers you gave me, Ronnie, this is the 51st time the Mets have had a runner at third and less than 2 out. Detroit leads the majors, 81 opportunities.
Phillies last with 40.
And the reason the Phillies are last in scoring runs. And Harang relentlessly keeping it inside to Granderson, 2-1.
Well, that's where he's trying to get a pop-up from Granderson. 1 was called a strike, 2 others missed.
Granderson 3 for 3 getting that run home from third with less than 2 out. Now Harang's behind him, 3-1.
This is one time, if you're Curtis, look middle of the plate in. Try to hit one over the wall.
Tejada at third and 1 out. Scoreless game in the 5th. 3-1 to Granderson. And Curtis goes after the off-speed pitch, 3-2.
Well, not only did he miss the pitch, but his hand came off the bat. Good sinker away. Watch his hand. See how it kind of slips off the bat right after the swing, or right in the middle of the swing, maybe.
Harang needs a strikeout. He's had 2 tonight. But he walks Granderson, and now the Mets have runners at the corners. First walk given up by Harang, and the 19th drawn by Granderson, who's in the top 4 in the league.
Well, Harang's not happy, but he's not totally unhappy with that walk. His defense, I believe, will push back up the middle and double play depth. They'll be pinched in at the corners in case they have to come home on a ball hit softly. But he'll try to get the ground ball from Lagares.
So Lagares with the infield to double play depth. First and third and 1 out. One is flied out and popped up 0 for 2. And he pops it up. Who's going to take it? Galvis calls, and a big second out for Aaron Harang.
Well, unlike Granderson, who didn't bite on the pitch in, Juan did. And that's a pitch that he doesn't really handle that well. Above the belt in, and the result is the pop-up.
Lagares now 0 for his last 16, and that's a big one. Now Harang with a chance to get through the inning if he can get through Lucas Duda. Lucas is popped to short and grounded out to the third baseman, who was playing on the right side of the infield. This time they have to play more straight up. First and third and 2 out. Duda struggling as well, just 1 for his last 18. For such a long time, Lagares and Duda were really carrying this offense, and now both have gone cold. Ground ball into the shift. Hernandez boots it, and a run comes home. And the Mets score first. Well, Chase Utley getting the night off. Cesar Hernandez filling in, and he boots a routine grounder. And the Mets lead 1-0.
Well, the problem for infielders when they play that far back is they break down like they're going to make the play like they are at a regular position. You've got to charge that baseball as hard as you can, kind of get it on the short hop and make that play to first. The problem he had, Gary, is that ball hit right on the dirt grass lip. That makes it a little more difficult.
So it's an error all the way. No RBI for Duda. Mets have a run home, and they've got 2 on and 2 out for Michael Kadire, who's singled and flied out 1 for 2. First run of the game brought to you by Verizon Fios, the fastest, most reliable internet. Aaron Harang, first unearned run he's allowed this year.
The Boo Birds came out too hard on Hernandez. I'm thinking a couple of reasons. One, it's a huge play, and people come here on Saturday night to see Utley play.
Or maybe they thought it was Utley, whom they booed last night.
That's right.
Utley's hitting .099
Saturday night to see Utley play.
Or maybe they thought it was Utley, whom they booed last night.
That's right.
Utley's hitting .099 now, which is an historically low average for a regular player this deep into a season. And Harang fools Kadire badly. 1 and 2.
Remember the year, good slider here, slider cutter by Harang. Remember the year, I think it was 3 years ago, Adam Dunn got off to that kind of start, and it never changed the entire year. He had like 150 or something.
Harang ahead 1 and 2. And Kadire reaches for that breaking ball and fouls it off.
The problem for players, Gary, you know this as well as I, is that you say in the back of your mind, whether you're a pitcher or a hitter, hey, this is going to change. I mean, I know what kind of player I am. At some point, this is going to change. Sometimes it doesn't.
That's when you wind up on your couch.
That's right. Or someone's couch.
Or sitting next to me.
That's right.
1 and 2 to Kadire. Grounded toward the hole. Knocked down by Blanco, but he has no play, and the bases are loaded. That'll be an infield hit for Kadire. So the backup infielders for the Phillies not able to make the big plays with 2 outs.
Well, nice try here by Blanco. One, you got to keep it in the infield, of course, but it looked like, I mean, great range to even get there. No play for Galvis. And a couple of soft hits, but Kadire will take them as Bobby McClure will come out and talk to his pitcher. That's great range to get to that baseball. And, you know, if you're Grandy, you're going hard, but you got to pick up your coach, because you don't know by that sound if the ball's gone through or not, and Tuffle will let you know.
Yeah, it would have been a hard play to try and score on. Ball didn't get too far away from Blanco. So the Phillies trying to keep things together. They've given up an unearned run here in the 5th, and now Murphy comes to bat with the bases loaded and 2 out.
That was very interesting. Did you see that? He went and he talked to Harang, and Bob McClure, before he ran back in the dugout, put his hand on Hernandez, the second baseman's shoulder. Like, hey, we're going to pick you up. Go out there and make a play. That was pretty cool.
Granderson, Duda, and Kadire the base runners. Murphy 1 for 2, and he takes a strike. Murphy rolled the base hit through the right side hole his last time up. Now 9 for 25 against Harang. That's a .360 average against this right-hander. And you see what he's done with the bases loaded in his career. Never a grand slam, but a lot of hits. The Mets as a team this year have really thrived with the bases loaded. They're hitting .480 as a team with the bases full. No grand slams. Kevin Plawecki on deck, and I think sometimes those things go together. Mets have done a nice job putting the ball in play in these situations, not trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Murphy's, well, with 2 outs, not as great, but was 4 for 5.
Another pop up near the mound, and it's Blanco to grab it, and that retires the side. So the Mets settle for 1 unearned run in that 5th inning, and here's your run, John Neese. That's some beautiful time-lapse photography here in Philadelphia.
They had a great kind of arts and crafts fair at Rittenhouse Square today.
Still going. Well, John Neese handed the lead as he takes the mound to the bottom of the 5th. Carlos Ruiz bounces 1 foul. Ruiz took a call 3rd strike his first time up. Phillies have had only 1 hit, and that was a play on the backhand of Daniel Murphy that was a 50-50 ball. Neese has walked 1, struck out 3 through the first 4 innings. And Ruiz drives one to left. Kadire chasing back and makes a nice catch. Kadire with an athletic play for the first out.
Well, what's really great about that play from our perch right here is that Michael Kadire got such a great jump on that line drive. When it left the bat, I thought sure double, but he got back there quickly and great instincts to make that catch. First out, most important, any inning.
Now Odubel Herrera takes a strike. Well, last night the Mets only scored 1 run, and after they did, next half inning, Ryan Howard hit a home run, put the Phillies back in front, and that was the end of the Mets scoring for the night. So essential for Nice to put up a 0 in this 5th inning with the 6, 7, and 8 hitters up.
They have those splash home runs in San Francisco. How many flower bed home runs does Ryan Howard have against the Mets?
He's killed a lot of bugs. John Nice trying to beat the Phillies for the 7th straight time. He's won each of his last 6 starts against Philadelphia. You know the Mets have won 8 of their last 9 series in this ballpark. And Herrera out on 3 pitches. 4th strikeout of the night for Nice. 2 out.
Might have found a little Achilles heel. See the feet of Herrera. First the pitch is up the stairs. And look how he leans on that ankle bone, high leg kick, and didn't get down that foot in time to swing at that high pitch. That could be an Achilles heel moving forward against the youngster. Can he use that high fastball?
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Andres Blanco, who has the only Philly hit, that infield single off Murphy's glove in the 3rd.
When you're saying they won 8 of the last 9 series, Gary, and we're looking at this lineup tonight, coincides with the Phillies not being the same team that they were for that 5-6 year stretch.
Line over short and a base hit for Blanco. So there's a clean hit for Andres Blanco. So the Phillies have 2 hits, and Blanco, the number 8 hitter, has them both.
Pretty good breaking ball by Jonathan Nice. Better hitting by Blanco. Went down and hit it off the shoe tops. I think when Jonathan gives up a few hits on his breaking ball, it makes him not want to throw it anymore, and I think it should be the opposite. Continue to throw it.
Harang tops one up the line, and it kicks foul. Harang running as hard as he can down to first base as Nice fields that ball. That's a nice job by Aaron Harang, really busting it down the line.
I just hope that no one from the NFL Combine had the watch on him, I'll tell you. When I see a pitcher running down the first baseline, it reminds me of that extra inning game that the Mets played last year, where they lost one of their relievers, their last reliever, running down to first base when he pulled his hamstring. But there goes Aaron, hustling. Why not?
It's his 37th birthday today, and he was sprinting. Curveball from Nice to get ahead 0-2. Rank struck out trying to bunt, sort of, his first time up. And he lays off that curveball 1-2.
To let you folks know at home, because I have an August birthday, so if you have a birthday within season, having a birthday as a player means nothing. Because it's not celebrated, no one cares. The only thing that changes is occasionally some fan will send you a nice cake that they usually throw on the floor. They do something bad with.
Nice through 5 scoreless innings, has himself a 1-0 lead. Screens, Time Warner Cable. Enjoy better. Get to Citi Field Sunday, May 17th, when the Mets take on the Brewers at 1:10. The first 15,000 fans will receive a Daniel Murphy Magnet card. That's a Daniel Murphy Magnet card, courtesy of Wise Snacks. After the game, all kids 12 and under can run the bases in the Mr. Met Dash. For tickets, visit Mets.com/Family Sundays. I mean,
is this a first that we do magnet cards every year?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
This means you can have Daniel Murphy on your fridge for the rest of the season.
There you go. Right next to the pocket schedule.
Right. Pick your kid's artwork.
That's it.
Right.
That's right. Crucial names, addresses, and phone numbers.
Right. Kevin Plawecki is 0 for 2 tonight. And he lays off the first pitch breaking ball from Aaron Harang. Plawecki is hit one deep to left and taken a call third strike. Mets got an unearned run in the fifth, the game's only run against Harang, who continues to pitch extremely well on his 37th birthday. Nubbed foul by Plawecki, 1-1. Harang playing for his 8th different major league team. I saw a very interesting stat, by the way, again about the Phillies starters today with Dilson Herrera on deck. The Phillies' overall pitching numbers are bad. Yeah. They've issued the most walks. They've given up the second most hits of any team in the league. Plawecki hits one out to right, and Frank Core with plenty of room. One out. Now this is supposed to be a hard ballpark to pitch in. Citizens Bank Park, very cozy conditions. The Phillies starters on the road this year have a 6.80 ERA. At home, 3.16. Wow, you would think it would be the other way around.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Small sample size?
Well, it's small sample size. And also, ballparks are different in April and May than they do over the course of the summer. We'll see it in Wrigley.
Dilson Herrera thinking about a bunt with the third baseman Blanco playing back.
Wrigley in the summer, there's no ballpark that plays any smaller than Wrigley Field. And it will be a Grand Canyon this week.
Herrera lifts one to center. And the other Herrera, Odubel, over to get it for the second out.
Now, we've only played about a month of baseball, and the time of game has definitely been better.
Right.
Some of it might be the pace of game initiatives. I think one of the things I've seen, and I can't document it because it's not enough time yet, is because the strikeout totals have gone through the roof the last 10 years or so. Just for my eye watching the games with you, guys are swinging early.
No question. And I think there are a number of influences there. There's Ruben Tejada, who singled and doubled and scored the only run of this game. I think if you look at the statistics over the last decade or so, strikeouts go up every year, but also walks go down every year. Well, in an environment where pitchers are throwing more strikes early in the count because for years hitters were encouraged to work deep counts. Nobody wants to be 0-1 every at bat.
Yeah, pitchers have just figured it out and say, you want to take a strike? We're going to pump one in there. And unless you're Mike Trout last year, who could take first pitch and become an MVP.
Tejada hits one deep to left center. Herrera back onto the track to grab it.
Most guys are not going to hit very well, only with 2 strikes.
Harang with a 1-2-3-6, still 1-0 Mets. Early lead in Arizona. Marlins and Giants after Tim Lincecum pitched another gem for San Francisco last night. Ben Revere leads off the home sixth.
Saw that Will Myers is 1 for 1 there. I wonder if he's going to be playing first base now that Yonder Alonso hurt himself.
Alonso looks like he might be out for a while. Revere bounces one foul, 1-1.
Let me ask you a question. I think this is one of the best out-of-town scoreboards in the league. Do you like this one or no?
It's pretty similar to the one at Citi Field.
No, but it's just down on the field.
Yeah, located down there instead of up in left field the way we have it at home.
But I like it. And I like the one at home also. Love the one at home.
They're very similar in the way they tell you how many on base and how many out and all that.
Well, the fun thing for me is that I used to be able to do it as a player, but those numbers of the pitchers, I used to be able to, when I played, know everybody's number. Don't know anymore.
Herrera takes an extra beat and loses the play. Don't know if he had trouble getting it out of his glove, but with the speed of Revere, that little hesitation costs Herrera, and Revere is on to lead off the bottom of the sixth.
Well, some problems for both second basemen, but nice play here. Not nice play, but exactly what you said, Gary. He took some time getting it out of his glove, double clutched, and by that time rushed the throw. We've seen Herrera since he's come back up from last year. His throw angle has dropped considerably because they wanted him to throw the ball, release it quicker, not to have a long arm action.
Kind of like a guy who used to play here in Philly, Manny Trio. Fly ball to right off the bat of Galvis. Back to tag is Revere as Granderson makes the catch, but Revere is not going to try it as Granderson gets it in quickly. 1 out in the inning.
Revere recognized that play too late. I think what you should know as a base runner, he's mad at himself, is that Freddie Galvis hit that ball. So there's no way he's going to hit it over the wall in right field. And if he does, well, great, then you have to run. He recognized it so late that he didn't have a chance to tag up.
So 1 out and 1 on. Darren Ruff coming to the plate. Ruff has been up twice, flied out both times. Revere stole 49 bases last year, 5 already this year. And Ruff gets stood up 1-0. It's 49 steals last year, most by Philly in almost 30 years since his first base coach Juan Samuel stole 53. There's Sammy.
Juan Samuel, when he first came up, what a player, dynamic offensive player he was.
With the Phillies.
With the Phillies.
There goes Revere. Plawecki's throw is high, and Revere stayed on the base. And he's got his 6th of the year.
Some of these guys are so fast that when they get and slide through second base, they've got to hold on with their toe. Good pitch for Plawecki to throw with. He releases it right on the target. But Revere is so fast. Watch. Slides right over the bag and has to hold it with its toe. Sometimes they'll come off the bag, and that was a nice job by Herrera to stay with the tag.
Something every middle infielder is taught now. Do not take that glove away.
Because of the replay.
1-2 to Ruff with Jeff Francoeur on deck. So the Phillies got a runner in scoring position for just the second time tonight in a 1-0 game. 1-2 coming to Ruff. Line into center, a base hit. Revere to third. Lagares gets it in quickly, and Revere will stop at third as Lagares hits Plawecki on the fly. There is fear in the heart of every third base coach in the National League, and Pete Buchanan was wise to stop his fast runner.
Good hitting first by Ruff. This is a bullet to center field. And just the way he charges the baseball and gets rid of it. You know, he misses the cutoff guy, but it doesn't matter. It's thrown so hard. There's nothing that the runner Ruff can do. And Lagares is taking a chance here to make sure to nab Revere at home. You have to think if Revere's running, he's definitely going to be going for home. That's why he made that strong throw.
99% of the time, Ben Revere scores from second base on a base hit to the outfield.
No one charges the baseball. He does a lot of things better than anyone, but no one charges the baseball better than Lagares, and it has to be his infield training when he was a kid.
And the other piece, remember the opening weeks of the season, there were a couple of throws Lagares made after he had kind of babied his elbow during spring training, where you wondered, maybe he's not going to have that full arm strength back. Well, last couple of weeks, he's unleashed some beauties.
I mean, just what a pick-me-up for a pitcher. Jonathan now's got to take advantage of it.
Tying run at third and 1 out. Revere at third, Ruff at first. And Francora takes a mighty hack. 0-1. And this is where the lack of discipline on Francora is something that Neese can pick on.
Well, I remember one of his first biggest hits in a Phillies uniform was a 3-run home run. He was trying to do it there.
Ball and a strike to Francora, who's flied out and struck out 0 for 2.
Jonathan can't forget. What does he need here? Okay, he'd love to have a strikeout, love to have a pop-up. He can get a ground ball on that changeup, that curveball down.
Francora drives it to right center. That'll tie the game. Granderson makes the catch. Revere comes in with the tying run. Sacrifice fly for Jeff Francora. It's a 1-1 game.
Well, Jonathan went hard at Francora. This ball's supposed to be on the outside corner. It cuts back over the inside corner. And it looked like Francora was going to right field the whole way. Good situational at bat.
So each team has cashed an unearned run, the result of an error by the second baseman. The second baseman for the Phillies, Cesar Hernandez, now bats with 2 out and a runner at first. Here's the changeup from Neese, something he's rarely thrown tonight. Herrera's error led off the inning. Revere able to steal second and eventually score on Francora's fly ball. And that's lined into center field. Lagares will have to play it on the hop and does well to be able to knock it down. That ball almost came up and bounced either off his face or over his head.
Well, what made that so difficult is Lagares wanted to make the catch. He was thinking of catching this line drive off the bat. He plays so shallow that balls that are usually easy base hits, he can sometimes turn into outs. He decides not to go for it late, slips and falls, and somehow almost like a hockey goalie blocks that ball in front of his face.
Well, he used his bare hand to do so. So a couple of hard hit balls here in this 6th inning. And now the go ahead run in scoring position. Carlos Ruiz coming up. And the Mets bullpen is going to get into action here. Ruiz hit the ball hard his last time up, and Kadire made a nice catch in left field. And Neese gets one in for a strike. Ruff now at second. Hernandez at first with 2 down. Phillies had just 1 hit over the first 4 innings. Now they've had 3 in the last 2 innings. And Neese with the cutter gets ahead 0-2.
The only game Jonathan has not pitched well in a start was the game in Yankee Stadium, where the Mets made a few bad plays in the field and he wasn't able to stem the tide.
Buddy Carlisle up in the bullpen. And Neese wants a conversation with Plawecki, which gives us a chance with the left-hander John Neese on the mound to say hello to one of our favorite left-handers, the great Al Jackson, who had a little medical issue to deal with this week. Al is in Florida and doing well, we are told. And Al, all the best. We're thinking nothing but great thoughts for you.
Well, I've said it many times to you Met fans at home that I don't know if I ever would have played in the major leagues if it was for Al Jackson. He's just a mentor, one of the greatest guys I've ever met in my lifetime. I'm not even talking about a pitching coach. So get healthy soon, Al. I want to hear that big laugh.
He has one of the great laughs of all time. Of course, Al was an original Met back in '62, pitched each of the first 4 seasons in Mets history, then came back later in 1968 and finished up his career as a Met. 1-2 to Ruiz, pulled down to third, right over the bag, and the Phillies will take the lead. Ruff is in to score. Hernandez will be stopped at third. Carlos Ruiz with an RBI double, and the Phillies go in front 2-1.
Well, cutter in. Ruiz was sitting on it and hits that ball right down the line. See how far Murphy is off the line. Well, he wasn't going to make that play anyways, no matter what position he was playing.
So Carlos Ruiz with just his 4th run batted into the season, and it puts the Phillies in front 2-1. And now Odubel Herrera with 2 in scoring position and 2 out, and this is one of those outs that John Neese absolutely has to get. His team has not been scoring runs.
You know, if I was talking to Jonathan about what I see when he gets in these innings, is that, you know, there's plays that should have been made. That happens. That happens all the time. But you had a sense in this game that he was mixing up his changeup, his breaking ball, his fastball, both sides of the plate while he was going good. When things kind of get cramped and people get on base, he tends to go almost all with hard stuff. Makes it a little easier for the hitters to eliminate pitches.
2-0 to Herrera. You got the switch hitting Andres Blanco, who already has 2 hits in this game, waiting on deck.
You got to be smart here. You have a young kid. It's a 2-0 count. He's going to be swinging just about no matter what. Do not use his impatience against him. Do not throw him a cookie down the middle.
It's off the plate. Now it's 3-0. Herrera tonight has grounded to short and struck out. See, while Neese was very effective early, since Blanco's hit with 2 out of the 5th, Phillies have 4 hits in their last 7 at bats, helped out by the Herrera error, which has given them 2 unearned runs already in the inning. There's a strike, 3-1.
And the only reason I say that, Gary, is that, you know, you've got Herrera on deck, Herrera up now, Andres Blanco on deck. You know, so if you get behind in the count, don't groove a ball to a hitter. You got a base open, go to the next hitter. Especially with how the offense has suffered.
And Herrera with a wild cut, 3-2. Hernandez at third, Ruiz at second with 2 out. 2 runs home here in the 6th. Three-2 coming, and Herrera goes down to the curveball side, retired. 6th strikeout for John Neese, but the Phillies get 2 unearned runs and their first lead of the night. 2-1 Phillies after 6. On the broadcast tonight, stuff we don't normally see out on the field. The Fanatic behind closed doors.
I don't know. I'm not sure if he wants us to see all this, Gary.
Well, this is all access, Fanatic. Oh, he's got his own locker room.
Yeah, you can't go in there.
Private limits. Can't watch the Fanatic undress. I just can't. I don't want to.
Was that a kegerator in there?
Well, this is a little surprising. Mets down 2-1 as we start the 7th, and Terry Collins is going to leave John Neese in to bat for himself.
I would not do this with the offense struggling after that inning that Neese just had. I would hit for him with a hitter, try to get something going.
84 pitches for John, so certainly that's not the issue. But you know, it's not just how many pitches you throw, it's how many you throw under duress, and he just had a long inning where he threw almost exclusively under duress.
You know, listen, John's a pretty good hitting pitcher, but he better not be better than the guys you have on the bench. And you got to get something started. Every out is just so important for the way the Mets offense is going.
Granderson and Lagares to follow. Aaron Harang now with the lead for the first time on his birthday, and Neese rewards his manager's confidence by lining a base hit. Third hit of the year for John, and the Mets have the tying run aboard. So what do we know?
Well, this is where I get the 30-second timeout. Good hitting by Jonathan. Never thought he'd hit a curveball for a base hit.
So John now 3 for 11 on the year. That's a .273 average, by the way, which the way this offense is going right now, that's good. Here's Granderson, 1 for 2 and a walk, trying to make something of it. The Phillies bullpen is cranking now. Jake Diekman, the left-hander, Luis Garcia, the right-hander. Granderson fouls off the fastball, 1-1. Three runs scored in this game, all unearned. Mets scored an unearned run in the 5th on Hernandez's error. Phillies got 2 in the 6th after Herrera's error. Fly ball to center, and Odubel Herrera over in left center. The retired Granderson went away. Now Lagares, who's 0 for 3 tonight and 0 for his last 16. Got the pants hiked up tonight, trying to change his luck.
Yeah, that's what you do when you're in a slump. 14 fly ball outs for Harang tonight.
That's his game. How many ground ball outs? 1, 2 if you count the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Then he had the ground ball to the second baseman that was booted. So he's gotten 3 ground balls tonight. And Lagares drives it deep left field. Back goes Revere looking up. It's out of here! Juan Lagares with a 2-run homer, and the Mets go back in front. First home run of the year for Lagares. Well, it took 7 innings, but hiking up the pants paid off. That was a shot.
Fastball up in the strike zone. Terry Collins has said many times he watched this young man take batting practice. He hits the ball as far as anybody in their lineup.
That was some serious exit velocity. 9th career home run for Lagares. Now Duda follows with a fly ball to left, but this one's playable for Revere, and that's the second out.
I mean, there's a phrase in baseball, they say Tommy hawking. That's a tomahawk chop of hitting that ball up in a strike zone, and the reaction from Harang. Great top hand.
And a very impressive bat flip for a guy who hadn't hit a home run all year.
Well, there was some frustration brewing. And don't forget about the great defensive inning he had the half inning prior. Sometimes that gets you going.
Well, the home run for Lagares came in his 118th at bat of the season, and came at a point where he was hitless in his previous 16 at bats, and he gets a high five from his hitting coach. Dyer's been chasing a lot of breaking balls out of the strike zone lately.
I mean, just a blast. You can do the bat flip if you run out of the batter's box. You can't do the bat flip and stand in the batter's box.
Blanco gives ground, spins around, and throws out Kadire to end the inning. But the Mets go back in front on one big swing of the bat from their Gold Glove center fielder. First home run of the year from Lagares, and it's a big one. 2-run shot in the seventh puts the Mets up 3-2 at the seventh inning stretch. JetBlue's award-winning customer service, you above all. Andres Blanco takes a curveball for a strike as we start the bottom of the seventh. Mets now with a 3-2 lead after Juan Lagares' two-run homer. Blanco's 2 for 2, an infield single and a hard hit to left. And he flies this one out to center. Lagares has to race back, finds it, and makes the catch. You know, that's not going to go on his highlight reel, but that was incredible what he just did. He got frozen and still made the play.
It's almost like he did a shuttle run while he was trying to make that catch. He underestimated how far it was going at first. Then he made up for it with his speed, but then he had not figured out where to run to, so then he had to do a pirouette to get in the proper position, and did that all over the course of 150 feet.
And didn't have to dive. He was just there.
Yeah, no 3 circles in a dive. Maybe 3 circles.
Cody Ashe pinch hitting, flies one out to right. And right there is Granderson to grab it for the second out. So just like that, Neese with 3 pitches has 2 outs, and he's making his manager look more and more brilliant by the moment. The decision to let him bat.
I mean, I have to offer my mea culpa. I did not think he should have batted in the last inning. He leads off with a hit. Lagares with a 2-run home run. It's the difference here.
And now trying to put a quick bottom of the seventh together. He'll face Ben Revere, who hit the ground ball leading off the 6th inning that Dilson Herrera bobbled, leading to the first 2 Philly runs. Revere 0 for 2 and a walk tonight. Mets 3 runs, 8 hits. The Phillies 2 runs and 5 hits. And Revere with a defensive foul ball, 0-2.
Well, we saw this last night, right? Revere dives into that strike zone, and that ball that's right at his hands can't get out of the way of.
Now the 0-2. Another chance for Herrera. He handles this one cleanly and throws out Revere. It's a 1-2-3 inning for John Neese, and it cost him just 6 pitches. Thanks in part to that guy. Lagares locating and making even the hard ones look easy. Years ago to hit 6 home runs in a 3-game span. This one a walk-off as the Nats beat the Braves. Johnny Cueto allowed 3 of those 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th when the game was decided, as the Reds beat the White Sox first game of a doubleheader. And Jason Hayward, 2 hits, an RBI, and the Cardinals trying to keep on rolling. Jake Diekman will pitch the 8th inning for the Phils.
Well, it's been a struggle. See those base on balls, 11 1/3 innings pitched, 11 walks. Last season had 35 walks and 73 appearances, but he struck out 171 innings. So nasty stuff from Diekman if he can get it in the zone.
Daniel Murphy leading off in the 8th. Mets with a 1-run lead. Murph 1 for 3 tonight. And a good slider by Diekman to get ahead 0-2. So Aaron Harang will not get a victory on his 37th birthday. 101 pitches in 7 innings, 3 runs, 2 earned, 8 hits, a walk, 2 strikeouts, and the big home run by Lagares that put the Mets in front in the 7th. 99 from Diekman.
When I see Diekman throw, occasionally it reminds me a little bit of the White Sox pitcher Chris Sale. The way he delivers the ball to the plate, all arms and legs. Doesn't have the control of Chris Sale, but at times just as nasty.
One and 2 to Murphy. Plawecki and Herrera to follow for the Mets in the 8th. And Diekman strikes out Murphy with a slider, 1 out.
This pitch doesn't have much dip to it. It just kind of sweeps across the strike zone, but starts on the inside corner, ends up on the outside corner on Murph. He has that 3/4 motion. He's on the 3rd base side of the rubber all the way over. And I told you, all arms and legs from Diekman, who just has a fantastic arm.
Well, he's done his work for the night. He gets the left-hand hitter out, and now he'll take his exit. And Ryan Sandberg will bring in Luis Garcia to face Kevin Plawecki. Call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon, America's largest and most reliable 4G LTE network. We'll be right back to Philadelphia. Right-hander Luis Garcia in to face Kevin Plawecki with 1 out and nobody on in the 8th.
Garcia's got that hard sinker. You can see those numbers against right-handed hitters he does very well against. But like Diekman, it's a lot of walks, 7 walks in 12 2/3 innings pitched for the young Garcia.
And a balk.
That's right.
Didn't he end a game with a balk?
I believe the game ended on a balk.
That's not friendly. That happened to the Mets in Atlanta a few years ago. Remember that?
Yep. The runner on 3rd base, I forget who it was, started to go down the line. You know, they played that shift,
in Philadelphia where they had the third baseman over. Started to come down the line hard, and Garcia tried to get his foot back, but got it caught on the rubber. Ended up with the balk.
One and two to Plawecki.
It's a nasty slider that he's got. Great stop by Ruiz.
One two to Plawecki. Was it DJ Carrasco who balked in Atlanta?
Oh, it might be.
The Mets lost a game. It's like, what, 3 years ago?
That's when the Mets, it was the first time in, and because the Mets didn't have enough starting pitching and DJ Carrasco was going to have to start, Atlanta decided to play that doubleheader on the getaway day. Oh, well.
Plawecki, 7-game hitting streak, but 0 for 3 tonight. And Garcia just missed with that slider. He thought he had strike 3, and he's looking annoyed.
Yeah, Ted Barrett missed that pitch, but he hasn't missed many. He's had a nice night behind the plate. He missed that one. Happens.
Carlos Torres busy in the Mets bullpen, but after Nice had a very easy 7th, who knows, maybe he'll get the start of the 8th as well. He's only at 90 pitches. 3-2 to Plawecki, and he fouls off that sinker.
You know, I was mentioning the other day that umpires on the average is 290 to 300 pitches per game thrown. You count both sides, so that's 300 squats per game for the home plate umpires. We don't talk a lot about their physical conditioning. None better than Teddy Barrett.
And Garcia bounces that one in there for ball 4, and Plawecki's on with a 1-out walk.
I mean, either he slipped or something, but Garcia didn't even come close. He does a little bit of that Jordan Walden where he kind of hops, skips, and a jump before he lets the ball go to the plate. As Herrera comes up, Gary, you know, we never talk about the umpires who have to stand back there in today's game, reliever after reliever coming in, and they have to make adjustments from a Jonathan Nice and Aaron Harang, guys who throw strikes, to all of a sudden these guys that you know, they might not know as well.
So now Dilson Herrera, who's 0 for 3 tonight, with Plawecki at first. Garcia struggling with his control. Slider misses. 2-0. Well, as the years have gone by, certainly relief outings have gotten shorter and shorter. Yeah. It's what did somebody call it? Creeping La Russa-ism.
Yeah, right. Or you bring in a pitcher like they did with Diekman here. Just get the lefty Murphy out, and that was enough.
So as the years have gone by, relief outings have gotten shorter, which means more relief pitchers in each game. Which means that many more of those adjustments you're talking about for umpires. Yeah,
adjustments for umpires. Personally, I don't think it's the aesthetics of the game are as great when you are changing these relievers in and out after they get 1 out. I think you watched last year the Kansas City Royals, San Francisco Giants, of course, who won the World Series, how if you can use your relievers to be crossover relievers who can bridge innings. They don't only have to pitch 1 inning. They can sometimes get you 4 outs, and you don't have to bring in a new guy to face a left-hander or a right-hander. He goes the entire inning.
And Garcia finally gets a strike. That's the first one he's thrown since he didn't get that 2-2 call against Plawecki. Ruben Tejado's had a good night with the bat, waiting on deck. Garcia walked his first batter. He's 3-1 on Herrera. And Herrera drives one to center, and Odubel Herrera plays it on a hop. And so Dilson Herrera has hit in his 3rd straight game, and the Mets have 2 men on in the 8th.
Well, nice swing by Dilson there on the breaking ball. You've noticed now his hits are starting to come, other than that home run the other night, up the middle. Much better approach.
Bob McClure, the pitching coach, is going to go out to talk to Garcia, who came in with 1 out and nobody on, has given up a walk and a base hit. Tejada will be coming to bat. Johnny Manel has come out on deck to bat for Nice, but that's not a slam dunk. Remember the other night?
That's right.
Manel was on deck, and I asked Terry Collins, by the way, about that game the other night against the Orioles, because remember, Manel was on deck. Herrera hit the ball that was first ruled a double, and then they had the replay, and it was ruled a home run, and they ended up leaving DeGrom in the game to bat. But Buck Showalter came out to argue, and what Buck was arguing was that not that Manel had been announced into the game, but that Manel had actually put his foot in the batter's box, which would put him in the game even if he hadn't been announced. And it turned out, even though none of the umpires saw it, Buck was right.
Of course he was. He's always right. The other thing is that it makes sense. His first time up in the big leagues. That was going to be his first bat this year.
Yeah, he was a little anxious.
Yeah.
Anyway, Manel, who has yet to take a turn at bat for the Mets, is out on deck here with Tejada at the plate. Ruben is 2 for 3, a single and a double. It's the best way to start your weekday. Join Suki, Corey, and the gang from 5 to 9 on the Pix 11 Morning News, where every story hits home. Tejada hit a long drive to center his last time up that Odubel Herrera caught on the warning track, so Ruben swung the bat well all night long. Getting the start tonight at shortstop. He's got Plawecki at second and Herrera at first with 1 out. And he lays off the slider from Garcia, 2-0. Boy, Garcia, ever since he didn't get that 2-2 call on Plawecki, he's been all messed up.
Well, he's pitching backwards. The pitches he is throwing to start the at-bat, those are the ones you use when you get ahead of a hitter. Got to be able to throw the ball over the plate at some point to get on top of the count.
2-0 to Tejada. And Ruben fouls off the fastball. In-game box score brought to you by Nissan. Shop ChooseNissan.com. Juan Lagares has the big hit, a 2-run homer, his first of the year in the 7th inning to put the Mets in front. Kadire with a couple of hits. Tejada with 2 hits, including a double. Mets with 3 runs and 9 hits tonight. For a team that has been in a bit of an offensive drought. 2-2.
You can see why they cart this kid out there, though. He's got a great arm. Cutting action on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball.
First signed by the Dodgers out of the Dominican Republic. Now 28 years old. He's had stints with the Phillies each of the last 3 years, but has really not been able to stick for very long. 2-2 coming to Tejada. And he lays off the slider, 3-2.
Well, he's gotten himself into so much trouble here. On a 3-2 count, he's got to throw that fastball that he threw on the 2-1 count.
Well, he's had a 3-ball count to each of his 3 batters. He walked Plawecki, gave up a hit on a 3-1 pitch to Herrera. Now he's full to Tejada. That's looking for some insurance here in the 8th. And Ruben takes outside, ball 4, and the bases are loaded. Well, Phillies pitchers have given up more walks than any staff in the league. Harang walked only 1 in 7 innings, but Garcia has walked 2 in a space of 3 batters. And now the bases are loaded for Johnny Manel in his first appearance as a Met. Manel, whose dad spent 5 years in the Mets farm system and who had a great spring training, gets his first at bat as a Met with the bases full.
Well, he did. I mean, it seemed like every other game he was hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And you could have made an argument that he could have made the team out of spring training.
Plawecki at third, Herrera at second, Tejada at first. Johnny Manel, who had some big league time with the Giants. The pride of Christopher Columbus High School in the Bronx. His initial Met at bat facing Luis Garcia. And he takes a big rip at a slider, 0-1. You knew that was coming.
Yeah, right. He was just looking for a fastball here with the bases loaded. Instead, he gets the breaking ball.
Manel, 29 years old. He had the misfortune to be stuck behind Buster Posey as a catcher in the Giants farm system. And he lays off that one. Just 8 at-bats with San Francisco 2 years ago. 1 big league hit under his belt. Spent last year in the Dodgers organization. Played for Albuquerque. And the Mets got him as a minor league free agent. And with Manel on the roster, the Mets carrying 3 catchers, that enabled them to use Recker to pinch hit last night. And he got a hit. And Manel fouls one at the plate, 1-2. The lefty is Elvis Araujo. The right-hander is Justin DeFreitas.
They lost Mario Hollins, who did such a nice job for them last year, to an arm injury.
Garcia ahead on Manel, 1-2. And Johnny lays off. That's low. Full 2-2. 98 that time from Garcia.
He doesn't know where it's going, but if he can get it over the dish, it's pretty hard to hit.
2 walks, sandwiching a base hit against Garcia. After Jake Diekman got the first out of the inning by striking out Murphy. Now it's 2-2 to Manel with the bases loaded. And Manel tries to lay off. They look at third. No swing, says Scott Berry, and it's 3-2. Well, Garcia is facing his 4th batter. He's gone to a 3-ball count on all 4.
He got his first hit, you said. Would Giant maybe get his first home run here? 3-2 fastball to a fastball hitter.
To Manel. And he grounds one right back to the mound. Garcia comes home for 1. Ruiz with the turn. Ruff stays on the bag, and they turn the 1-2-3 double play. Nice snag by Garcia to get it started, and it keeps it a 1-run game as we go to the bottom of the 8th.
Bad luck. Hey, good at bat. That would have been a base hit up the middle. Kind of a heave of a throw by Garcia, but nice job by Ruff. That stretch, the good target, keeps that left foot just on the bag. I mean, that's a guy who can throw 98, but when it's an athletic play, he threw it about 8.
Shot put. It's like a 16-pound weight. Carlos Torres comes in to pitch the 8th inning for New York.
His last 2 or 3 outings have been really the same Torres we saw last year, and that is great cutting action on his fastball and down with his pitches.
We'll face 2, 3, and 4 in the Phillies batting order. That's Galvis, Rupp, and Frank Cord due up. Remember, they've got the big left-handed bat sitting on the bench, Utley and Howard. First pitch, driven deep to right center. Back in the gap. That's down for an extra base hit. Galvis to second. He'll pull in there with a leadoff double. So Freddie Galvis, the hottest hitter in the Phillies lineup, had taken an 0 for tonight, but he turns around to bat left-handed for the first time, and he hits one almost 400 feet.
Well, I don't know about you, Gary, but I've been impressed by Freddie Galvis in his first 2 games. So we're talking about a player that had been suspended before, was sitting behind Jimmy Rollins all those years, and they said he could play if he got the opportunity. He's starting to make me a believer.
Only the 4th extra base hit for Galvis among his 35 hits. And now he's the tying run at second with nobody out, and that double play a moment ago looks enormous as Darren Ruff stands in. Ruff is 1 for 3, singled and scored in the 6th inning. And Torres gets the cutter in for a strike. John Neese went 7, allowed 2 runs, both of them unearned, 5 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Neese through 6 starts now has an earned run average of 1.95.
Boy, impressive.
We'll put him 4th in the league right now. Ruff hits it the other way. That'll advance the runner. Duda takes it himself. Galvis to third with 1 out.
Well, you'd have to think where Ruff is sitting in the lineup third that he's trying to get a base hit the other way, but pretty nice job on a tough cutter of getting that ball and situationally getting the runner over to third base.
Well, Jeff Francoeur is due up, but Grady Sizemore is going to bat for him. Interesting, because last night after the game, when Ryan Sandberg was asked about dropping Chase Utley in the batting order, he said, "There's nobody I'd rather have at the plate with a runner at third to get a run in than Chase Utley." Well, here he's got that opportunity, and it's not Utley he calls on, it's Sizemore. Mets will go to the left-hander. Torres will exit, trying to hold on to a 1-run lead. Alex Torres coming in. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon. America.
Well, you see Chase Utley in on there to let Sizemore know what he knows about Alex Torres. In some strange way, just almost plays into the hands of the Phillies, because in moving and bringing in Alex Torres, he's got unbelievable numbers against right-handed hitters. It's the left-handers that he struggles a little bit against.
And the Phillies really don't have any right-handed bats on their bench, only their backup catcher Cameron Rupp. So it's Sizemore to face Alex Torres, and you see the splits there. He's done well against the lefties.
Yeah, I shouldn't say that he struggles against them. He just doesn't face a lot.
But even better against the righties.
First batter faced. Big numbers.
Infield will come in. Tying run at third and 1 out. Galvis with good speed at third. Sizemore 2 for 3 this year, getting the runner in from third with less than 2 out. Utley, though, with all his troubles, 7 for 7. But it's Sizemore who's the choice here to try and get the tying run in. And Alex starts him off with the fastball inside.
Good pitch there. Not called by home plate umpire Ted Barrett. Plawecki's going to have to be on his toes too. That changeup or breaking ball in the dirt with Galvis, who has great speed at third base.
Galvis edging down the line. 2-0 to Sizemore.
Easier for that runner, Gary, to edge down the line with a left-handed pitcher. His back's to him. Can't really see him. You can only sense or feel him behind you. .2-0 changeup.
That's his go-to pitch. And it's off the plate. And now it's 3-0. Well, a walk would set up a double play situation, but it would also put the go-ahead run on base, which you hate doing. The switch hitting Cesar Hernandez is on deck.
You let the veteran Sizemore swing 3-0. Lefty-lefty matchup, I would.
Alex Torres behind 3-0. And Sizemore takes ball 4. So that first batter faced a problem for Torres again. Now, though, the infield can back up to double play depth with Cesar Hernandez coming up. And Dan Worth is going to go to the mound to talk to Torres, and Pete McCann, the third base coach, is going to talk to Hernandez.
Well, there's a lot of talking going on. Worth in first. What he's going to talk to Torres about is Hernandez. He's the threat also of a guy having the suicide or sacrifice squeeze. So you've got to be alert to that. What are you going to do if he decides to turn around, throw the ball outside of the strike zone to Plawecki? And I think McCann talking to Hernandez about the same thing. Be heads up for a sign. Well, we used to do it. I don't think they do it anymore. If you were pitching and the guy squared around at the last minute for a suicide squeeze, you throw it right at his head because he's going to get out of the way. Or not at his head, but, just up and in.
I'd have to think the suicide squeeze is less likely when you got the go-ahead run at first base.
Yeah.
But you don't want to give away an out. But Terry Collins telling everybody, look alive for the bunch.
This is just not your everyday fifth-place hitter for a major league lineup.
Hernandez tried to bunt his way onto the third and was thrown out. So he's got that on his mind anyway. 1 for 3 tonight. Single to center field his last time up. Middle infielders a double play depth. Corners in. First pitch fastball misses, and Alex Torres is yet to throw a strike.
Both relievers on both sides are finding it hard to get the ball over the strike zone.
Carlos Ruiz, who doubled in a go-ahead run in the 6th inning for the Phils before Lagares' home run put the Mets back in front in the 7th. Now the Phillies trying to at least get even here in the 8th. 1-0 to Hernandez. 2-0. 6 in a row out of the strike zone.
It's going to get around the league that Torres is a guy who pitches around the fringes of the strike zone, make him get the ball up, and make him throw strikes.
Well, he's missed with a couple of fastballs to Hernandez, now behind in the count. And now it's 3-0.
I think that was a 2-0 changeup, right?
Second one he's thrown. Galvis the tying run at third. Sizemore the potential go-ahead run at first. Alex Torres thrown 7 pitches, all balls. Now it's 3-0 to Hernandez with Ruiz on deck. And he gets himself a borderline call, 3-1. Buddy Carlisle staying busy. Probably in to face Ruiz. 3-1 coming to Cesar Hernandez. And he missed outside, ball 4, and the bases are loaded. Back-to-back walks issued by Alex Torres. And Terry Collins comes up the dugout steps.
Well, after some clean pitching by both starting pitchers, Harang and Nice, it's gotten ugly here for the relievers on both sides.
So Buddy Carlisle is going to have to try and bail the Mets out. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon, America's largest and most reliable 4G LTE network. Seven-year-old right-hander comes in to face Carlos Ruiz. Mets clinging to a 1-run lead in the bottom of the 8th. Bases loaded, 1 out. Ruiz has hit 2 balls hard tonight. A liner to deep left that Kadire made a terrific catch on, and a double down the left field line that drove in a run in the 6th. Galvis at third, Sizemore at second, Hernandez at first. And we see the numbers for Ruiz against Carlisle: 3 for 7 with a home run. When Buddy needs, it's a ground ball right at an infield. And Chooch takes a fastball for a strike. Odubel Herrera, left-hand batter, waiting on deck. Mets bullpen is quiet.
Nobody's nervous with Buddy when he comes in because he has a quick exchange at the belt when he comes to the plate. I'm afraid that one of these umpires is going to call him on it.
Stop balk. Slider off the plate. 1-1.
You're supposed to stop for almost a count before you proceed. He kind of generates some momentum with that glove getting into his pitching movement. Split finger grip.
One and one to Ruiz. And he hits a hard to shortstop. Backhanded Tejada. Turned by Herrera. In time. Double play. Side retired. Ruben Tejada having a big night. Makes a terrific stop. Herrera hangs in. And the Mets turn a critical double play at the bottom of the 8th Ryan Sandberg waiting to see whether he will challenge the call at first base. But if it holds, what an enormous double play for the Mets. Sandberg says no challenge, and on we go to the ninth. What a terrific play.
Well, Herrera stood in there and fired a strike. And see the last step, he's in the air when the catch is made. Best double play all year for the Mets.
With the bases loaded, Tejada with the sit spin, and Herrera hanging right in. 6-4-3 double play sends us to the ninth with the Mets up 3-2 in Philadelphia. Ninth inning, Curtis Granderson leads off against Luis Garcia. An enormous double play turned by the Mets.
Don't forget, this ball was hit right on the nose. It spins Tejada around, and Herrera stays in there and gets something on the throw. As good a double play as you're going to see. You know, there's no time to come across the bag. All you have to do is take it and send it along its way, and you have to just stand in there. Hernandez wasn't able to get through the bag and into Herrera.
Used the bag as protection and still got enough on the throw. So for Herrera, who committed an error earlier in the game, that was big. But also the play by Tejada to start the thing, that was terrific as well.
Like I said, it was a bullet that he backhanded.
Granderson 1 for 3 and a walk tonight. He fouls back the fastball.
And good stretch by Lucas. In the glove, foot on the bag. That'll bring smiles. Big defensive play. Beautiful.
Bounce down to Rupp at first. Comes up for him. 1 out. Well, both teams loaded the bases in the 8th inning, and both relievers got enormous double plays on hard hit balls to get themselves through the inning.
You know, as far as if you're a runner, you young guys and ladies at home, if you're trying to break up a double play, you can never slide into the bag because it's always going to stop you. You have to pick a side, and if they pick the opposite side, at least you can use a leg whip type of action to get into the body of the second baseman.
Juan Lagares, who has the biggest hit in this game. Mets were down 2-1 in the 7th when Lagares hit one deep into the seats in left field for his first home run of the season, a 2-run shot to turn the game around. Snapping an 0 for 16 in the process. And Garcia gets the slider over for a strike, 1-1. Garcia came in the 8th, walked a couple, gave up a base hit, but then got that comebacker from Manel to turn the double play. Torres has got the Mets in trouble in the bottom of the 8th, and Buddy Carlisle, with help from his infield, got them out. And now J.R.H. Familia getting ready for the 9th.
Stranded runners for Carlisle was 4 for 7, now 4 for 10. Pretty good.
Hacked into right center, overcomes Sizemore to get it. 2 out. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by your tri-state area Volkswagen dealers. Visit VWDealer.com. Now Lucas Duda with 2 out and nobody on. Another empty night for Duda at the plate. 0 for 4. Now just 1 for his last 20.
Mets could really use an insurance run.
Well, particularly with Ryan Howard sitting on that Phillies bench, you have to figure he's going to get an at bat sometime in that bottom of the ninth.
In this ballpark, you know, it just if you have a 1-run lead, it feels like a half a run lead. You know what I'm saying?
One to Duda. Due up for the Phillies in the bottom of the ninth. 7, 8, and 9. Herrera, Blanco, and the pitcher spot. But you got Utley and Howard both available as pinch hitters.
Yeah, Tejada in the lineup to help Neese's pitching, and it's Buddy Carlisle who helps.
Well, Tejada's helped in more ways than one. A couple of hits and a walk. Scored a run. Big double play.
I mean, you know, this is just me speaking. I might keep number 4 on the bench for a while if with a night like he had tonight.
Duda stops the swing in time, and it's 2-2. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Ruben has certainly had plenty of chances over the last several years.
Well, all you have to do is think of it this way, okay? The Mets have scored 3 runs tonight, so no offensive explosion. If you're going to pitch it and you're going to not hit it a lot, then you better catch it.
And Duda goes down on the breaking ball. So Garcia has his first strikeout, and the Mets are on 1-2-3 in the top of the ninth. Now Familia will try to protect a 1-run lead in the bottom of the ninth. Here's your Phillies box score brought to you by Nissan. 2 runs, both unearned for the Phillies in the 6th inning. Carlos Ruiz an RBI double. Jeff Francoeur sacrifice fly.
The most important part of that box score is over there available position players.
Jerry's Familia perfect in save opportunities, tied for the National League lead in saves.
Got a couple of outs in a non-save situation his last time out against Baltimore.
He's got the rookie Odubel Herrera to lead off, and then Chase Utley has come out on deck to bat for Andres Blanco, and looming behind Utley is the home run bat of Ryan Howard. Herrera tonight is 0 for 3, grounded out and struck out twice. All of that against John Neese, who struck out against Neese.
If you're not a home run hitter, the rule is take a strike, try to get on base.
So Familia going for save number 12. And Herrera takes a first pitch hack at a fastball and fouls it back. I guess the rule didn't apply.
It's a youngster.
He's looking for his first big league home run. That guy has a lot of them. It's been a real struggle for Utley, but he'll get the pinch hitting assignment next. And you have to believe Howard is right behind him. And staggered their way through the 8th inning with their bullpen. Familia trying for an easier night. The quick pitch and stepping out Herrera. It's a strike. First time he's seen that quick pitch from Jay Reese, and he didn't like it.
Well, another a move because he's a youngster. Quick pitch comes, can't call timeout there, and he's not going to be given it because he's a rookie.
So now he's in a 2-strike hole.
Do it again. He did.
He does. And he misses with the slider. 1-2. I remember the last time I saw a guy be handed the closer's job and be as dominant as Familia has been this quickly. It's not going to be perfect, but pretty much he has been so far. 1-2 to Herrera. Struck him out. Nasty. 1 out of the bottom of the 9th.
All fastballs, and then comes back with a slider down and in. Late break, great torque on that pitch, and Herrera didn't even come close. He was in his brain after the quick pitches.
So now it's going to be Chase Utley, who's getting a huge ovation from the Philly crowd that booed him last night when he went 0 for 4. Utley's batting average has dropped to .099. He's 0 for his last 19. But he's always done well as a pinch hitter when called upon. Utley has had 62 career pinch hit at bats. He's hitting .323 with 5 pinch hit home runs. That's very unusual for a guy who plays every day. On deck, Ryan Howard, who's also done very well as a pinch hitter. Grounded foul. Pitch pouring in on him. 1-1.
Well, you know, Utley's a good low ball hitter when he's right. There's Ryan on deck.
Familia taking a moment to tie his shoe. That's the old John Franco move. Whenever John wanted time to think out his next pitch.
So he quick pitches you and ties his shoe.
Just got to change the pace on you. One and 1 to Utley. He sells one high. 2-1.
See defensively for the Mets. Duda's hugging the line on the pull side, but Murphy off the line with the 1-run lead. Protecting the lines on half the diamond.
2-1 coming to Utley. Foul tip. 99 miles an hour. 2-2.
It's almost like Familia's turned it up a notch here. He knows the situation. He knows his team has been struggling a bit. This is one of those saves that closers have to get.
Howard on deck. 1 out and nobody on. 2-2 to Utley. And he bounces one. Full count.
Always the problem with that pitch with Utley is he doesn't move. So if that ball, you know, they say hit back foot slider. Well, if you throw it and it's going to hit him on the back foot, he won't move and go hit by the pitch.
Well, the last thing you want to do is walk Utley ahead of Howard. So Familia has got to throw a strike. And Utley knows it. 3-2. Line drive, base hit. And the Phillies get the tying run aboard with Howard coming up. Chase Utley snaps an 0 for 19 stretch with that base hit.
Oh, he looked like the same old Utley to me in that at bat. took a lot of close pitches, fouled off some pitches, and got it to 3-2. Knew a fastball was coming and turned it up a notch with that beautiful short stroke.
So now it's Howard. That's a put on the full shift against him. Howard has really perked up over the last few days. You see his pinch hitting numbers there. 6 pinch hit home runs for Howard in just 48 at bats. But over the last 4 games, Howard is 8 for 15, and he hit a home run last night, his 6th of the year. So he's looking more like the Howard of old over the last few days. That's will send Murphy over to the right side, but set up at double play depth with Tejada alone on the left side.
Remember, he cheated on Harvey first pitch last night, hit that home run.
Hit it to left center against Matt. And Familia starts him off with a slider, ball 1. Herrera and Tejada conversing about how they handle the double play.
Familia now does not hold runners close. Utley's days of running a lot are over, but he still can swipe a bag.
Howard 1 hit in 4 career at bats against Jeurys Familia, and that's what he's done lately. Utley the tying run at first and 1 out. And Howard swings, hits it out to center. Lagares has room. 2 out. Exhale. The Phillies down to their final out with Ben Revere coming up.
You could tell by the sound that Howard just didn't get that, just off the end of the bat. And he's so strong off the end of the bat means 385 away.
So Familia with 1 more out left to get. He'll take on Ben Revere, who's 0 for 3 and a walk tonight. Revere, though, 3 for 7 in his career against Familia. Familia trying to save it for John Neese, who didn't allow an earned run in 7 innings tonight. And throwing confidently to first a couple of times in this sequence.
It's nice to see. It's almost like his entire confidence level has gone up a notch since he's got the closer job.
Utley has only 1 stolen base this year. And Revere takes a strike on the outside at 98.
I didn't know you could throw a 98-mile-an-hour sinker. I didn't think it was humanly possible.
Brody Galvis would be next. Familia trying to end it right here. Off the plate. 1-1. A ball and a strike to Ben Revere. Tapped slowly. It stays fair, and the ball game is over. Jeurys Familia notches his 12th save. John Neese gets the win with 7 solid innings. Juan Lagares with the go-ahead home run. And the Mets even up the series in Philadelphia as they win this one 3-2.
Well, to me, this game will be remembered by the unbelievable double play turned by Tejada to Herrera to Duda. Buddy Carlisle got Carlos Ruiz to hit the ground ball. The Mets turned it. That was the difference in winning this game. And you don't know what's going to happen this season, but right now, Familia is having as good a stretch as a closer as any Mets in Mets history.
Familia 12 for 12, leads the National League in saves. John Neese finishes the night with a 3-2 record and a 1.